Lynda Kinkade. We begin in Kenya, where rescuers are frantically trying to find survivors after a building collapsed in the capital. The residential building came down on Friday in Nairobi, killing at least 7 people. So far, rescuers have pulled out more than 120 survivors, but dozens more are feared dead. Now we're learning the building had actually been condemned. Clearly that directive was ignored. Just hours ago, Kenya's president toured the site and ordered an immediate survey of other at-risk structures. Our Robyn Kriel is live in Nairobi, and we will have more on that story with Robyn. But first, the other story from the Kenyan capital, millions of dollars worth of ivory literally going up in smoke there as the government tries to send a message to poachers.
Well, yes, so nearly $200 million to be completely accurate, Lynda. Quite a jovial atmosphere out here in Nairobi National Park. The fire has been lit. President Uhuru Kenyatta lighting what's called the President's Pyre, the biggest pyre. Now all of the pyres are on fire, including one which is purely of rhino horn, and of course the message that Kenya is sending to the world with this gigantic ivory burn. It's the biggest burn in history. Kenya's burning virtually all of its ivory stockpile, 105 tons of ivory, 1.35 tons of rhino horn. The message is that this is worth nothing. They say that this has no value. That's why they're burning it. They say the only way that ivory and rhino horn has value if it's on a living animal. And Lynda, just to give you an idea, what you can see behind me is the burn, of course, but also the media frenzy. And that is what Kenyans are really, that's the message that they're trying to put across. They're trying to let the world know that they do not want people poaching their animals, that they do not want the rest of the world trading in ivory. They're pushing, and they're going to be pushing at the CITES conference, which is coming up, the Endangered Species Conference, which is coming up. They're going to be pushing on a complete ban on the international trade in ivory, as well as the domestic trade of ivory.
And Robyn, despite the fact that they're burning about $170 million worth of ivory and other goods there, the elephants are worth much more to the Kenyan economy alive, aren't they, for their tourism revenue?
Yes, 12% of Kenya's GDP comes from tourism, so hugely important to Kenya, as well as what we've heard, at least from a number of conservationists, is that you actually get 76 times the amount from an elephant alive if the tourist comes to take photographs and spend their money here in Kenya than you would by killing it. And what they're really trying to push forth with this whole messaging this week has been that elephants have feelings, that they're incredibly friendly animals, that they are incredibly family-oriented animals, as well as rhino. We hung out with a little baby rhino the other day, and it is just incredibly sweet and cute. It's gentle, and they're just trying to really push that these animals are so hugely important to the African continent for tourism, but as well as the fact that they're also just very symbolic, Lynda.
And just looking at the other major story out of Nairobi today, the building collapse that happened there on Friday. I understand a little baby was pulled from that rubble.
Yeah, Friday night at about 9 p.m. Kenyan time, torrential rainfall, really heaviest rainfall that we've seen this year, Lynda, was raining pretty much all afternoon and into the night. And then we heard of this building collapse. A 7-story building collapsed, and people just have no idea how many are inside that building. So anywhere from up to 200 people, we believe. The Kenya Red Cross saying that it has rescued a number of people. At the moment, the death toll stands at 7, but we're not sure if that has risen. But again, there's also those wonderful stories of hope and bravery. We've seen just those rescue workers pulling children out of the rubble, pulling grown-ups out of the rubble. The Kenyan Defence Force has responded, but also, quite disturbingly, we have heard that, according to government, this particular apartment building was condemned, and that people weren't supposed to be living in there, but that they ignored it. So this really just talks to the heart of the issue of the housing crisis in Kenya, particularly low-income housing. how people are desperate to live close to Nairobi because that's where most of them work, that they will even live in buildings that should really not be lived in.
Yeah, we're just watching those pictures right now of that frantic search for survivors. And talking about the buildings within Kenya and around Nairobi, I understand there was an audit last year which found more than half of the buildings are uninhabitable. They shouldn't be unfit for humans.
Well, yes, Lynda, and I really can't remember a rainy season when this hasn't happened, depressingly enough. I've covered a number of these building collapses since I've been living here, as well as mudslides, huge mudslides, particularly in the low-income areas, such as that are very low-lying, that really do get flooded, that probably are areas that shouldn't have large, tall buildings, 7-story buildings built on top of those soft sort of sands that aren't conducive to huge buildings. So very, very concerning, and as you said, that housing survey really quite eye-opening, but again, not really hugely surprising because there are often these sorts of building collapses, and it's really, really worrisome. The number of these sorts of things that Kenya Red Cross and the Kenyan Defence Force has to respond to is really quite incredible. Lynda, President Uhuru Kenyatta travelled to the building site earlier before he came here to the burn site and did order a full investigation into this, saying that people living in the surrounding buildings should also be evacuated because, Lynda, he said that if there is any chance that any of those other buildings fall, then they should be evacuated to a safe place. We're not sure of the fate of those who were living in that building, those who have been rescued. We do understand that rescue workers have spoken on the phone to some of those who are trapped in the rubble, and that's who they're trying to desperately get out. But where will those who survived stay now? More than 100 people, Lynda.
Yeah, it's really a huge challenge there. Robyn Kriel staying across two big stories there in Nairobi. Thank you very much.